Hello, Orville Nation. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Bird of Prey, Adega, Bio Mike, JD, John DeMarco, Alicia, Jamal, Herb, everybody. Thank you, guys. We have a great panel to interview this sci-fi icon that's joining us today. We have Katie, meteorologist Katie Nickolaou. Nickolaou, sorry, Katie. I had an echo and Anti-Trekker. Thank you for joining us, Anti-Trekker. Author Stephen Walton. Drew Taylor from Bounding into Comics. And our guest tonight is JG Hertzler. Thank you for joining us, JG.
Sure. My pleasure. But Katie, are you a real meteorologist?
I absolutely am. I got my degree back in May. I chased tornadoes, and I'm on TV all together into one.
What's your batting average with predicting the weather?
My senior year, I forecasted 11 of our 12 snow days, got them exactly right, and the only one I missed was because a pipe burst, and that wasn't weather related, so it's not my fault. I still have a perfect record. So,
so you're telling us you bat.
You could say somewhere around there.
Come on.
That's respectable.
Yeah.
Very respectable.
Actually,
I mean, Ted Williams only batted 400, and that's a 402, I think, for a lifetime. So I don't believe it.
There you go, double that, and that's me. Yeah. As long as you believe my forecast, that's all I need.
So JG, as we were preparing for the interview, a couple of us have been coming up with questions, and we have some questions from the audience. And there were some roles that even I didn't know that you had done. And I'm thinking, like, what the hell would Star Trek do without you?
You mean roles on Star Trek? On
Star Trek, yeah.
Well, I don't know what they seem to be doing fine without me. Most of Voyager and most of Enterprise, and Picard is stumbling along. I don't know how they can possibly go any longer without me, but
I don't know. I have a feeling we need to have some General Martok come back.
Absolutely.
They
Chancellor Martok.
In the last episode I saw, though, they did mention the Klingon Empire in passing, talking about somebody's attacking somebody. And what do you know, I'm spending most of my time watching Orville because I had a lot of catching up to do. But
how are you liking that?
It reminds me of All in the Family. You're too young. But
I'm not.
I'm not.
Was brilliant comedy, joke after joke after joke after setup, punchline, setup, punchline, setup, punchline, and then I was watching it. I think I was. This is many years ago, and I might have been on some sort of controlled substance. But they suddenly they did an episode where the Jewish Defense League guys were staying with Archie because they got the wrong house. They were there to protect a Jewish family, but it was in a different house, and they just happened to get the wrong house. And Archie hated everybody, every possible ethnic unit. He didn't like anybody. He didn't even like him. He didn't like himself. But so at the end of the thing, it was a lot of jokes in there, and then at the end of the episode, they realize they're in the wrong house, and they're leaving, but they became all episode because Archie suddenly realizes that the Jewish people are also human beings, and they were all standing at the door and waving at the JDL. Is that the right term? Jewish Defense League? Was that what? Am I using the right term, or is it?
That was the Anti-Defamation League.
Anti-Defamation League. Anyway, he was going. You couldn't see him because he was off camera, behind the camera. They were all standing at the screen door, waving and smiling and come back and visit. And he said, I will. Anyway. And then suddenly there's an off screen, there's an explosion, the flash on their door that they're seeing. And obviously the guy's car was blown up. And after joke and setup and joke a punchline and setup and punchline for, 42 minutes, 44 minutes. It was a half-hour show, or was it an hour? I guess it was a half hour.
All the time was a half hour.
Yeah, I think it was a half hour.
So it was 22 minutes of comedy. And so there was 21 and a half minutes of comedy. And then in the last 30 seconds, it turns into a devastating tragedy. Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, while I'm on the subject of a car blowing up, death to Kuroga.
That's right. You heard that, Bird. You can say what you want. I got General frickin' Martok on my side, buddy. All right, go ahead.
Don't forget it.
But that's a funny thing though. You talk about that because I'm a little older than most people on this panel. But I mean, back in the 70s, sitcoms did that a lot, where they would get a really serious note in them, particularly at the end, where they would just hit you in the gut with something that happens at the end of the show. And All in the Family was great at it. Good Times was great at it. A lot of those shows back then would just twist you at the end. And if you're comparing that to Orville, where Orville has these happy, jokey, funny things, but it's also a serious sci-fi drama. And they kind of jump back and forth between the two really well.
I've only seen 2 episodes where it was there's a different writer often for every episode, but there were a couple that were straight out dramas. They even toned down, the little funny exchange, the mini exchanges among the crew, which is, I mean, we've decided that we love Jay Lee, John Lamar, beyond all else. I mean, the guy, I thought he was actually related to Hakeem Jeffries on the impeachment team. Senator, he's a House member. Hakeem Jeffries. John Lamar, that character, I don't know why they've moved him off the helm. Does anybody know the answer to that?
I think I do. I mean, I'm just speculating here, but I think there was a parallel parody between him and Geordi LaForge from Star Trek Next Generation, that Geordi went from the helm to the engineering at the end of the first season. I think.
So Geordi, with his air filters on his eyes, was at the helm.
Well,
yeah. Blind guy at the helm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was in season 1.
Well,
by the way, Berta Prey says, "Holy crap! I'm devastated."
Berta Prey. Die again, Kuroga. Geordi, Geordi, Lamar. Oh, these woodchucks. The TV is on without the sound. These woodchucks chucking wood for, I guess it's Geico or Progressive or whatever it is.
Yeah, Geico commercial.
They are huge. They are going to get enormous. They're huge. Anyway, LeVar directed the episode of DS9 of Soldiers of the Empire, and he's an incredibly good director. I mean, Michael Behar, I don't know if you know the directors of the episode, but Michael Behar was also one of the most brilliant directors on DS9. You can always tell a Behar show. But LeVar came up to me at one point while he was directing the show, and he said, he looked at me, he looked at my face and my eye, and he said, I don't know how you get so much emotional impact from just a one eye. And I said, Navarro, what the hell are you talking about? You didn't have any. Anyway.
Let me ask you something. Because you are, to me at least, I know some people think of Worf as kind of the consummate Klingon, but to me it's always been you. Your character embodied Klingon to me. And as an actor internally, how do you see, like, do you see the Klingons as basically, like the samurai, like some people say? Do you think of them more like, the Norsemen of old? How do you see the attitude of the Klingon as a people?
I don't know much about the samurai, but the Norsemen, it wouldn't be the Norsemen, because the Norsemen, above all else, winning is everything.
Right.
And how you get to that point is unimportant. But
right. Honor was not the important thing, like the Klingons.
To a Klingon, it is very important.
Right.
What victory is built upon. And I think that's probably true. The samurai are, are an amazing, but I don't know much about them. I don't know much about that group of that thought.
But where were you? But where was your headspace when you were working on your character of Martok? What were you thinking of as your personalhood? What were you?
Well, the amazing thing about the whole Klingon experience is that Klingons exist. Ron D. Moore, the writer, not the. I always get the D wrong. Is it who's the writer?
Ronald D. Moore.
Ronald D. Moore.
Oh, okay. Is an extraordinary writer, and his story is an extraordinary story as well. How he got onto the show in the first place, but he built such a ethnicity and such a culture behind the Klingon world. What I was told by, I think O'Reilly told me that he had some experience with Jimmy Doohan, and I think he told me the story that Jimmy, when the Klingons first appeared, John Colicos, in the role of Kor, when they first appeared, they didn't know how to say the words, and Mark Oakwood hadn't written a book, and at that point, and so Jimmy Doohan said, whoever pronounces a Klingon word the first time that's how it's pronounced. First. So from that point, almost 40 years in the future, or 40 years past that, or let me see, that was in 66. So in 96, 30 years later, Ron Moore is writing scripts for DS9, and the depth of culture and knowledge about the Klingon race is so deep and so profound and so approachable that I never thought of it as any other thing other than Klingon. I know they borrowed from, language-wise, they borrowed from German, from Norse mythology, from American. I was going to say, if there's anything like Michael and Sarah, I grew up watching Michael and Sarah. Kang. Is that right? Is that Beige with me there? Mike, do you know who Michael and Sarah is?
I don't.
Michael and Sarah are the three original Klingons.
Oh.
Kor, Koloff, and Kang.
Yeah, he was Kang, right?
Kang was Michael and yeah.
Yeah, he was my favorite from back then, yeah.
Oh, he was majestic. And I grew up watching him on TV doing westerns, playing Indians forever. The Cochise Arrow. And so of all the people on Star Trek, he was my idol.
That's right, because I was going to be my next question.
And go ahead.
Oh, no, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just saying you were just getting to my next question was going to be outside of Martok. where did you look as far as the Klingons? Who would you say is the Proto Klingon? That you would look at. It sounds like it would be Kang for you.
For me, it's Kang because Kor was more like Galvan than Martok, and Koloff was sort of like Jeffrey Combs or Bob Bruce, not Bill Campbell, William Campbell is more, is more like a lighter character, but Mike was just statuesque. I'll never approach that, but he was incredible to me. And that's
don't sell yourself short, my friend.
How many different Klingons did you play, JD? I'm sorry.
How many? I actually don't know the answer to that. 4 or 5, I think. I've done a lot. I get in Star Trek Online a lot too, and I've done Klingons of other.
Because I have you down in Enterprise as 1, and in Deep Space.
Yeah, that's
2 on Enterprise.
Yeah.
2 on Enterprise.
Well, the other one was on Enterprise was 2 on Enterprise. You're right. Thank you, Katie. Thank you.
One of your characters was one of my favorites on the show. So,
well, it got to be Borderland. That guy got killed within 2 seconds. So it must be Koloff. I mean, not Koloff.
It is,
Koloff.
yeah. Koloff.
Yeah, Koloff. In fact, my better half, Chevy, she heard my voice as Koloff, as Kolos. In a different, she was in a different room, and she thought it was Stacy Keach, and she said, "Stacy Keach is on Star Trek," and then she realized it was me, whom she didn't know at that point. So that was good background for our relationship because it's still here. But Kolos, I love doing Kolos. In fact, that's as close probably to Michael and Sarah as I could get, because not only did a lawyer, but the Klingon justice system is fabulous, because if you're a lawyer and you lose a case, not only your client goes to jail, but you do too. And I think that's only right. And I was so invested in the ethic of Klingonness that even though I went to jail, even though I think Dominic came to get me out of there with Scott Bakula, I don't know what his name was on the show, Dominic Keating, came and to rescue us. Maybe it was, no, Scott wasn't, it was Dominic. And he said, "You can come out. You're like, we can get out of here." I said, "No, I have to serve my time." And I didn't say those words. They were better words than my words. But that was for me. That was the combination of things that best represented what my concept of a Klingon: incredible strength, fairly smart, absolutely dedicated to doing what's right, and that made a lot of difference to me. The books I wrote, along with Jeffrey Lang, it was important for me to show the development of a Klingon leader, and that's what I tried to do with those books. Lord knows, we all have tempers. A Klingon temper is about as bad as you could get, I think. Maybe Q. Q could probably destroy all the universe and beyond, to infinity and beyond. But anyway, I don't know what the question was, but that's my answer.
Steve, you had a question for JG?
Yeah, JG, you were a linebacker in college at Bucknell University, where you were recruited by the drama department for a role due to your size. Was that your first experience in acting, and was that the inspiration for you to continue working in theater?
Oh no, my lord! My experience in acting in 6th grade, I wrote, produced, and acted in the 6th grade play, and then I took a break from theater for about 15 years. Yeah, I was a linebacker. I wasn't recruited. Who cares about the theater? They don't recruit people in college. But I was there, and I was playing football between 68 and 71. I would have played at 72, but I didn't play my last season. I quit my last season. I wasn't hurt. I was in great shape. I love doing what linebackers do. I had no athletic skills. The only thing I had was my ability to attack. And that's all I did. I love hitting people with my forehead. And
yeah, back then you could.
yeah. Oh yeah, everything I was taught. Anybody else play football on the panel here?
Yeah, I played high school.
Yeah.
So
I actually was a linebacker for Powder Puff football.
Okay, well,
Okay.
you're not wearing a helmet there, are you?
No. I played safety in high school, so it's similar to linebacker.
Absolutely. Safety, it's a little gentler. I mean, you have a few flowers attached to it. But a linebacker, everything I was trained to do as a defensive player, as a linebacker, a defensive end on occasion, is illegal now. Everything that was done. The first move you were taught to make was to hit the guy in the head as hard as you can with the heel of your hand, as fast as you can. That's illegal. Hit the guy with both hands in the face. It's illegal. What the flankers would do, and you know this as a safety, they would crack back. The crackback block was totally legal, and they destroyed hundreds of thousands of knees, I'm sure. What a crackback block is, if you're looking to your right, the guy comes running into the left and hits you right in your knee, and just tears everything to hell. Anyway, but I do think that linebackers, the Klingons are basically a race of linebackers.
That's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah, before they changed the rules.
Yeah, I remember JG. We had to watch, like they coached us, especially like on running plays, like on sweeps. You really had to watch out because people would block and try to take out your legs.
Yeah, get your head on a swivel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Drew, do you want to go ahead with a question for JG?
Yeah, well, my question was, in one of the things I cover for the publication that I write for is gaming, JG, and I played Star Trek Online from its inception, from 2010 on, and I wanted to know, like, your experience being able to kind of, because at the time, we didn't know if there was going to be any new Star Trek coming to television anytime soon or anything like that. You got a chance to really step back into Martok's boots per se, and dust off the character and bring some new dimensions to it. So how was that experience, and how did you enjoy the way that the story was written and the missions and how it came about?
Well, Drew, it was a blessing. It's getting back into it was like riding a bike. It's after working on Star Trek at DS9 and on into Enterprise and a little bit of Voyager. I got to work on the character for 5 years or so, or just at least a Klingon for 5 or 6 years. Mm-hmm. So I've done theater for almost 45 years now, and the as an actor, you have maybe sometimes you have a week to develop a character. Sometimes you have 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks, but you don't ever have 5 years to work on the same character. So when people sort of, it's not unusual for a theater person to say, well, I do theater. You know, I don't do television. I do theater because it's so much richer, so much more complicated, so much more demanding. Well, it's not. And never do any of those people have 5 years to work on their character and find the backstory deeper and deeper and deeper and get the relationships deeper. It was pretty amazing that way, and I'm very thankful to have gotten that shot. I saw on Orville, by the way, the other day, my friend Ron Canada, who played. Victor Garber was the first poncho that he had to get past to be able to get the ship and go out. Victor Garber was the guy behind the desk. You know who I mean? I don't know what the characters' names are. The actor was Victor Garber, and then there was a woman, and then I saw Ron. Ron Canada was in that role. Ron Canada was my best friend in New York. I met him we met in Washington D.C. He was actually a news reporter for WMAL. He's an Emmy-winning local Emmy news reporter back in the day, and he quit that to be able to get into straight acting in television and film. And that's when we met. I used him I asked him to do a role for me. I won't even go there. Anyway, we met. And became best friends in D.C. And then he is originally from New York City. I moved up to New York, and a show that I had directed in Washington was taken north. Anyway, we were very close. I auditioned for Martok, and his agent called him up and he said, because he had been told that he had the role, except they had to see one more guy. Me.
Oh, no.
And his agent called him up and said, Ron, I got some good news and some bad news. The bad news is you didn't get the role. The good news is it's your best friend who got the role. And I've teased him about that for years now, but he has worked a lot in film, and I saw him on Orville. I said, all right, you're on Orville. You're on Star Trek. I love Orville. The interplay is tremendous. And by the way, the design of that ship, does anybody know the story of that?
No.
We don't know, but it seems very aquatic to me.
Yeah, beluga whale is what I hear a lot of people compare it to.
Beluga whale. Well, if it's going away from you, the up sweep and the down sweep, it looks like a laughing face with a tongue. You know, I'm sorry, it looks like that.
Now that you mention it, it does.
I was gonna say there's
What's
the
oh
view
yeah.
of it. There you go.
Thank
You showing me something that I should be able to see?
Oh, it's just the Orville ship.
Oh, back behind you. Oh, I see.
Yeah. One of the perks of having posters.
Yeah, it looks like laughing teeth. You know, they're sitting on a table and you wind them up and they. Anyway, and not Klingon teeth. Yeah. So I forget. I have no idea what the last question was. But
Fair enough.
ask away.
Before we let Katie ask her question, if you guys will indulge me for a second, and I'm going to show you, JG, what you've inspired in this young lady.
Oh.
Let's see if we can get this right.
Is this cable TV?
Yeah, well, technically. No, it's funny because every time I go back and I watch myself, I just kind of sit back like, ooh, I could have done that better. So if I cringe during this, that'll be why.
All
Let's
right.
see if we can get this right.
That I understand.
Oh, you'll see. You'll see. because I'm planning to do another one of these for a different fandom coming up this week. So.
Let me let's see if I get this right.
I have to step away for a minute, but here's Jolene Blaylock.
What you might be able to tell from my title, meteorologist Katie, I am a meteorologist here in Sioux City, Iowa, and my crew is really helpful and nice, and they don't judge me being nerdy, and so I do special weather forecasts for different fandoms. I call them fandom forecasts. So I did one for Star Trek and Star Wars, and I'm doing one for Survivor this week because they're coming back on, and I'm just surprised that they haven't told me to stop yet.
No, that's great. What a great idea. You know, I grew up with what's the guy? He was later on the news national show, Willard Scott as the weatherman.
Willard Scott.
Willard Scott in D.C. was also Bozo the Clown on local television.
Really?
Wow.
Yes. And he was a local celebrity for a long time in D.C. He would narrate the National Symphony would play, and he would narrate some songs. But he was Bozo, and I swear to you, Ronald McDonald is based on Willard Scott's Bozo.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Katie, go ahead and ask your question while I put this up, because it's giving me some trouble.
Absolutely. So my question is, in the past few years, I've wanted to get more into acting, and through a hilarious series of events, I've gotten some concussions that make it so that I can't really remember lines so well. I was wondering if you have any tips on how to get lines committed to memory.
What committed to memory?
Like lines in a script. Like I've tried memorizing.
Katie, I had to. The thing about it is, I did a lot. I've done a lot of Shakespeare, and the words that I had to memorize for the earlier roles when I was in my 20s and early 30s. Those lines and those words are still with me. I can do them. But after about 40, I did Brutus, and I was about 45, I think, in LA, and Brutus in Julius Caesar, and I had to work. I had to go through those in every word every day for several hours just to hold on to them. I literally wrote out my lines, wrote the lines out over and over and over again, because there was some sort of, not mnemonic, that's not the right word, but there was some sort of connection between writing the words and memorizing the words. More than just running lines with somebody. But it's a battle, and now Chevy has an eidetic memory, so she didn't even, when she was doing a little bit of theater and film and television, she professes to me that, I didn't have to memorize them. I looked at them, I knew them. I want to say F you, because I had to work like a dog, and most actors do. I don't have anything close to an eidetic memory, and what I do, if I did have anything close to it, it's gone, because I pounded my forehead one too many times. Oh, there she is.
Oh gosh.
Fabulous. You look good.
Oh, thank you. That was it was really fun walking around our TV station dressed like that.
You look good, and you're right there in front of the you're right there by Starfleet Academy.
Yep.
By the Golden Gate Bridge. Oh, that's the Bay Bridge. Or is that the Golden Gate Bridge?
Yeah, that's the Golden Gate Bridge.
I lived in San Francisco for a long time, and those places are dear to me.
Yeah.
Minus 270 degrees.
Oh yeah. I went through and I spent probably a week trying to figure out the locations I could do and what the weather would actually be like. So I did research if it was canon or not, what the weather was typically like, and I did the weather grid from Deep Space Nine.
Was 270 from Boreth, the the Holy Planet? Was that where? Oh, the ice planet was Rura Penthe. Was it Rura Penthe?
Penthe? I should have done Rura Penthe. Tell you what, I'll do in the sequel. I did Kronos, and that's coming up after the Vulcan Forge. So
I saw the little I saw in the background. It was Kronos. I saw the first city in the background there.
yeah, really. I spent way too much time building this because I made all the graphics for this too, and so I had to go and find like high def imagery and everything. And
yeah, Dan Curry, a special effects producer and painter for Star Trek DS9, and I think for Next Gen as well, painted those backdrops. That one right there, for instance.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said the temperatures might have a little bit of a bite to them when I was joking with my crew, and they just started laughing. So great.
I love it. Love it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, that's great too. Oh, Picard. No, what do you guys think of Picard? I've only seen they've only run 2 episodes thus far.
Yeah,
right?
it's only been 2 episodes. It's rather interesting. I think there's more of a slow burn to it, JD.
Slow burn.
I like the general direction they're going in the story, but I do think that it could use some Martok in it for sure. That would.
We just need some Klingons, man.
No. We need You see, here's the thing: Jean-Luc Picard is like the consummate diplomat and all that. Now, what does he need? He needs a foil that could equal him, and I think that's where we have Chancellor Martok out there. On the other side of the political fence and all that, and all the intrigue going on. I think that could be interesting. Rather than just have it with the Romulans. Come on, you got to throw some Klingons in.
I mean, he does need to get into space, right? And if the Federation won't give him a ship, doesn't Chancellor Martok have the Terran ambassador Worf with him? And isn't Worf his best friend? So
see,
make a phone call.
It could happen.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. I better.
Yeah, you send him a letter.
Get on that.
Better drop an email to somebody.
There you go.
Actually, I have a question for you, JG, and is that now here we are on this little live stream, and it's been a long time since since Deep Space Nine, been a long time since you put on the makeup and everything, but I'm sure you realize that you still have a rabid fan base, right? Besides the 5 of us right here. You have, about 100 people watching this live stream right now. Who knows how many will be watching it in the next few weeks? Yeah. And I mean, it's got to fill you with a sense of awe that you've touched so many people with that crazy Klingon character. So how do you feel about that? I mean, from your perspective, it's got to be a little overwhelming at times.
It's interesting because as an actor. Before I went to Hollywood and got cast in the first thing I did, I think down there was,
that's funny.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Very cool. Well, Michael Moore, 99.999% of that character Martok is right there in the makeup and the uniform. I mean, I loved. When I played football, it was the last thing I did after I got dressed, ready to go out, and there was a mirror, and I just looked at myself in the mirror, and I adjusted a hip pad, maybe the height of the tape on my cap was a little. I said, "Okay, I'm looking good." I go out and get something. And Martok was. I mean, it is such a delight to put on that full body mask called a Klingon. It was wonderful. And I was, thank my lucky stars, I got a chance to do it.
I could just imagine because you put on that armor, you got that makeup on, and you feel like you are Martok at that point.
Yeah, you can rock the ship out there. I mean, it's putting on getting into that Klingon mask, and I don't mean just the face, I mean the entire body. You suddenly have a get out of jail free card to do anything, say anything you want. It's pretty incredible. Is that the guy from Borderland, or is that Kolo? Who is that?
I believe
That
that's
is-
Cola.
No, that's not Cola.
No, no, that's not. No.
I don't think it is.
Oh, wait.
It must be Borderland.
Yeah, because the beard's
Wow.
different.
Yeah, man, that's very
Yeah.
cool. I would say that's me, but I'm not even sure of that.
Yeah, that's from. Wait, I have it.
It's
from-
got to be Borderland.
Oh yeah. It's from Enterprise.
Enterprise Borderland, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't last long, and one of my best friends from theater, Randy Oglesby, I think he was in on the Blowing Me Up. He came on, whoever those people were that like they were like the Herc, but they weren't the Herc. They weren't Species 384. It wasn't that or whatever that number was. They were the Z or the G. What were they called?
Zindi?
Zindi. That's it.
Mhm.
The Zindi came on. He was one of the Zindi, the super mutants, right? Capable of so much. Anyway, I love that. I mean, that character was great too. Let's see, when did I wear that uniform? I think it was for Borderland. I've always thought it was Polo, but it was Borderland. For that character, I'd love to see a full-length shot of him, because I believe I was wearing the costume that was built for Michael and Sarah. And when I only had a few seconds in this episode, and when they asked me to, pick out a uniform that I liked, I saw that this one was mostly rawhide, was made for Michael and Sarah, for Kang, and I said, "Oh, that's got to be it." And
Nice.
I remember the costumer said, Blackman. What's his first name? Richard Blackman? No,
I got it here.
I can't think of it now. But he said, "Oh no, that won't fit you. It fit like a glove."
Nice.
And I said, "This is it. This is
Meant to be.
meant to be." Yeah.
So I actually have a request. It came from an evil Kurogan, but it's still a request.
Sorry. My dog.
PJ, if you could, can you make my window bigger for a second?
Yeah, one second.
And so basically, he wants your opinion on a particular scene that you were in that he felt was really, really touching. And so I'm gonna.
Hi, PJ.
So yeah, that was PJ's screen. So I'm waiting for him to get it right there. So let me switch over here. So this scene here, where you have a confrontation with Aaron Eisenberg's Nog.
That was a good episode.
Yeah, and just he found that scene really memorable as far as the two of you interacting.
Hi, PJ.
PJ's just
Sorry,
struggling
I'm
with
having-
the
this is
StreamYard
not
right
res-
now.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm gonna figure it out. One second.
But any does this scene any thoughts about this particular scene that you did with him? Which I love that look on your face, like the right there. It's like that obviously this kid could do nothing to you, but you have respect for him because of his heart.
Yeah, I have the script right here, oddly enough. Blaze.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Blaze of Glory is the episode. Yes.
I was going to give it to a friend because he was raising money for something, and I said, and then I looked in it and I said, "Oh, this is the scene between Nog and I where he's saying you're going to have to move on," and I get in his face. You are even very stupid.
Klingons, you have to know how to handle them.
Yeah.
Classic.
I can only see the scene between Cisco and I. But when I found out it was Aaron, I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't give this away. You are either very brave or very, very stupid."
And let me say this, because you were talking about how Kang is that presence. I'm so, and anybody that knows me, they know that as far as Star Trek, I've always liked the original series the best. It's always, to me, Captain Kirk, Spock, McCoy. That is Star Trek. The rest of the stuff is great, but the original will always be the best to me. However, even though Kang is my absolute favorite Klingon from the original series, Martok, to me, more than anybody else, defines the Klingon race. Martok feels like that is, because Kang was only in one episode of the original series, and we got a little bit of hint of Klingon honor out of Kang. We got a little bit of hint out of the warrior mentality with Kang, but Martok personified it. Martok was the warrior spirit in a man, and I think that scene with Nog really brings it out, because you were stopped not by Nog's physical presence, but by his spirit, by his heart. You felt that was a warrior right there, and therefore you can respect him. And I don't know. I've always loved your character on there, and I think you sell yourself short, because while Michael was great as Kang, you were great as Martok. And that's not a word I use lately. I just want you to know Martok is an absolutely great character.
Thank you, sir. Another thing is they started writing for me. Once I was on the show for a while, then the writers, Ron Moore and Echevarria and Hans Beimler, they all started writing for me as I developed, got closer and closer to Martok. And, it's like that. If ever I'm talking to a young actor, they ask me, how do I build a character? What do I do? I said, there's lots of techniques, but the point of it is to get as close as you can, so that you don't know whether it's you talking or whether it's Mark talking. And the point, then you got it. But this episode, I loved it because when Scott and I were off in a tunnel somewhere, waiting to carry out these dilithia. It was the dilithian mines on Rua Pense, and they were big, heavy boulders of mica, heavy stuff. And they'd say, action, and we'd come around the corner carrying this heavy crap, and but when we're waiting back there behind scenes, holding this stuff, I remember asking him, I said, Scott, what'd you do before you were an actor? And he said, oh, I was an electrician's helper. I said, yeah, I poured concrete. I was worked for a non-union concrete company. And I said, and we just talked about our lives before theater, before film, before television. And it was so cool to get that connection with my fellow actor, who I never really saw. I did it. Yeah.
Oh, I was actually going to ask, JJ, didn't you do an episode of Quantum Leap? Didn't you get to hit Scott in that episode?
Yeah,
one of my all-time favorite episodes.
Fabulous nose of his. He has a great nose. And I hit him right in the face, and I just pulled it a little bit too late. He was married. He was this really nasty guy. He left into a really bad person, and that bad person was marrying my daughter. And I just said, boxing, Harvard boxing, 1919. Come on, whatever his name was, Harrington, but that was anyway. That was on the Green Mary. This is a wonderful life.
Yeah. Also, JG, you've done a lot of roles in shows that I've loved, like Quantum Leap and Highlander. You played a role, Marcus Corollas. It was an immortal that was born in 136, was burned at the stake in the 1600s, and lived until 1925. How do you approach playing a character that's almost 2,000 years old?
Yeah. Oh, it's a Christ question. I have no idea. He was, as far as I was concerned, he was an actor on stage that was posing as this posing as an actor, and my job was to just cut the heads off beautiful actresses. I mean, let me get into this and block this. I mean, can Google software update agent? No, get rid of that. What was I talking about?
Highlander.
No.
Cutting people's heads off.
Yeah, my main concentration was the sword fight. I had a sword fight with Adrian Paul. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Highlander. That lasted for about 4 or 5 minutes. And Sling and Steel, I worked to learn that fight. They don't, I didn't learn it going in, and you either learn it or you hurt each other. So you have to learn it. So the day before, I worked with Bob Anderson, who's one of the greatest sword masters in the history of fencing and sword work. Bob Anderson was 74 at that point. I was, I think, 44. And he worked with me 8 hours the day before.
Wow.
Teaching me that fight. And the only strong vestigial memory I have is that my elbow on my sword arm still hurts, because you're pulling an Italian rapier, which is a heavy blade and a very short hilt. And when you pull those blows, it puts tremendous torque on your elbow to stop the sword. It's much easier to just cut the head off. But when you have to pull it before you hit the head, it takes a lot. But this guy was 74 years old. It didn't affect him at all working with me for 8 hours. And I said, what a man. I mean, there's a man.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's amazing.
Anybody who does sword work will know that name and have the greatest respect for that guy. Now, the guy on Zorro was Peter Diamond. I did a lot of sword fighting with Duncan on Zorro, because I had to chase him every week for like 70 episodes and never get him. But we had a lot of sword fights together. And one time I was saying, we were on a rope bridge, on a wooden rope bridge across a huge chasm. It looked like it was 3,000 feet down, but it was about 10 feet. And we were sword fighting on this bridge. And at one point I stopped. I just stopped. And he said, what? Go ahead. What? And then, cut. And I said, I'm sorry, Duncan. You are so perfect. Look at you. And I hate these men. They're just so, and Duncan, he just, with that mask and the hat and the black gloves and the sword work and the satin shirt and pants and leather. I said, look at you. And anyway, I forget what you asked me, but
you answered plenty. Thanks.
I wanted to like kind of work out that question, JG, and I wanted to say, so you've used a variety of blades over the years. So what was it like then, actually handling like something unconventional like the batleth compared to a traditional blade? Because obviously the batleth is different to handle. What exactly goes into working with a blade like that compared to in the past using traditional ones?
Only slow bleeders or people that can take a lot of cuts without stopping them, without killing them, can learn how to use a batleth, because it does as much to the person on the other end of it as it does to the person wielding it. It's got little, no matter what twist you do with it, there's a point aimed at you, and it doesn't make any sense, but it's beautiful to look at. I think the original batleth had a wooden handle, and it was the sword of Kalis, and had a wooden handle and was, and that looked like it was, you could actually wield it and hurt people. This other thing it's heavy, and if you ever connected, it would do severe damage.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I actually have it. I have one hanging on the stairway near my front door because that's my anti-theft device.
Oh, nice.
I think if somebody sees me coming with a batlet in my hand, they're gonna say, "Uh-oh."
They're gonna turn around and go the other way.
Yeah.
Oh man.
JG, I wanted to ask you, did you give Richard Hatch any special advice on playing a Klingon?
I didn't. Boy, was he a great Klingon, though, huh? Richard was. I always teased him about being such a pretty boy. He's so handsome, and what a that's like when we lost Richard. That was hot. That was so tough, so tough. And then when Alec first talked to me about doing this, sent me the script to do this AXANAR, to do Prelude to AXANAR. I said, I read it and I called him. I said, you can't do this. This is a bunch of talking heads talking about a battle that nobody knows about and never happened. How can this possibly work? It can't work. And Alex said, well, Richard Hatch will know. I said, what does Richard Hatch know? Teasing, of course. And because I watched, I watched 1999 and Battlestar and all of them. But he was right. And then I saw, oh, there it is. The finished product, and between the most on the deck, it just the point of it hits the deck, and the sound effect is there. I said, God, he's a good Klingon. He's so good, and yeah, I had a wonderful time with Richard. I did a couple. He had dreams of getting that started again until they finally did it themselves. He tried like hell to get the money to get that, to let him have the rights. And he did a thing called Magellan Wars. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that or not, but it was just a teaser. And I did that with him. We did that. He parked his, I lived in a place called Tahunga, up in the mountains. It's just on the way up in the mountains, the San Gabriel Mountains. And I had a sort of a big, it was a canyon, and I had a big backyard. It sort of went straight down, but it was large before it went down. And he asked me, he said, can I park the, what are the fighters called? The X-Wings? The
TIE fighter?
Called in.
Viper.
What's that?
Viper.
Viper. That's right. Back in can you hold on to for me for a while? I said, sure. I'm not you. They brought this enormous thing over, and it sat in my side yard for like years.
No way.
And I had no idea. There must have been a way. There must have been a way to monetize that, but I didn't know what. But Richard was very funny. I said, Richard, I'm moving. You're going to have to come and get your Viper.
Imagine having that in the side yard, your bat left above your door. No one would mess with you.
Yeah. I gotta say, unfortunately, I gotta get going. I can't stay on, but I do want to say, JG, it was a true honor to get a chance to talk to you, and I truly appreciate it. I hope we get a chance to talk again sometime. And of course, death to Karoga.
Death to Karoga.
Death to Karoga.
I have no idea what's going on.
That reminds me of my daughter. When she was 2, I took her to a Klingon feast down in San Diego. And we were leaving, and I said, okay, now when you go, upon us, say say. So she turned around and said, no. Say it like a yeah. That's what she did.
Actually, before you head out, Drew, we should, if you guys are all down for this, all at once, just do kapah and just get it all at once, all 6 of us. What do you think?
That sounds good.
Yeah. All right. 1, 2, 3. Kapah! That was fun.
A little editing, maybe we can figure that out. Thank you again, and you take care, JG.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, Eddie Trucker.
Take care, Eddie Trucker.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Well, I have a question real quick, kind of outside of the sphere of Star Trek and acting. When it comes to just living life and living it to the fullest, what are some of your favorite activities to do, favorite hobbies? What it really makes you excited?
I'm a junior meteorologist, and I have a big whiteboard in the other room that is, and I have a lot of like magic markers that can be erased, and I'd love to just do the X's for the snow coming in, and and the fronts moving through with the triangle. No, it's a lie. I don't.
To say that's too good to be true.
but I love meteorologists. There was Willard Scott, and the guy was there was another I guess he didn't do the weather, but it was a guy named Davy Marlin Jones. This is long before your time. He had huge wide glasses. I can't remember, but there's been a fondness in my heart for meteorologists because they're the best actors on the shows, on the news shows. They have fun.
Well, it's crazy. Not to cut you off, but with meteorology, a lot of people don't realize the anchors have a script. We're making it up off the top of our heads for 2-3 minutes straight, and if there's you're just
that on tape. You're making it up off the top of your head.
That's right.
Quite literally, you have the numbers and you have the numbers memorized, but when it comes to a script, you're just like, all right, whatever happens.
Yeah, you
Thanks
guys
to
have
Stogie for that picture.
Yeah, you guys have too much fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I have a selfish question, JG. What's it like to have worked with so many wonderfully talented and beautiful Star Trek actresses like Nana Visitor, Terry Farrell, Jolie Blaylock, Jerry Ryan, and if I swung that way, Avery Brooks, but I don't.
Everyone's got Bakula.
About Orville, there's a lot of gay sex on Orville.
There is.
Tremendous.
There's a couple episodes, yeah.
Yeah, I mean Bortus and Glockenspiel. What's his name? Bylock or Bylock?
Yeah. Something like that.
His mate. Huh?
Oh, Clyde.
Clyde.
Yeah.
Clyde.
Clyde.
When the orgies and the holodeck.
Oh god.
Yes.
By the pools, that takes you right back to the old Star Trek, the original series, when there were women that had little things that were just barely pasted onto their bodies. But now it's Clyde and his mate. But the setting looks the same.
I was watching that episode when it first came out. I was at a conference. I was in the middle of an airport, and that just pops up on my screen. I'm like, oh no! It was so bad.
Can I have some water?
Yeah. It's definitely Worf. I mean, they're definitely building on the Worf because there's so many times where he doesn't get a joke. He doesn't have any sense of humor. It's wonderful. It's like, I don't think so. But they're genderless?
Yes.
Oh. Well, that's what it is then. Chevy corrected me. It's not gay sex. It's genderless. It's interesting though. There was other things. The blue guy. Because of his pheromones. He was having a wonderful. Yeah, some face sucking with what's his name?
With the Captain and Mercer.
Yeah, oh, Mercer.
Yeah. I said, so it was just. I said, those are a couple of episodes that have, for some reason, really stood out for me. I don't know why that is, but there was a couple of episodes before that were straight dramas. There was barely a joke in either one, and I said, well, this is odd. It's sort of like Star Trek, the original Star Trek, because you're dealing with issues that are very important, and they're not taking them lightly. They're not finding a way into humor. They're finding a way into drama. And I said, that's interesting.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
JG, you mentioned All in the Family. I think a lot about MASH when I watch.
Oh my god!
Yeah, said that before. You mentioned MASH before.
I just watched the entire series.
Oh, you did.
Oh yeah.
I mean, MASH is absolutely true.
Good television.
They walked a strange walk in that series because it was war. They were dealing with death and obliteration constantly, and it was sort of, I guess people call it gallows humor, but they danced over it lightly, and it was unusual. And MASH stands out that way. You're right.
I think
more than anything else I could think of.
When you talk to vets, I mean, when I talk to vets in certain areas, they all said MASH was it. That was what it was like in many ways.
I bet. I mean, you're living it. That's the world around you. That's the life you're in the middle of it. You have to survive as best you can. If you can't, you can't. It's out of your hands, really. Mm-hmm.
I try and I think of Star Trek as a lot like MASH in the way that they take some hard topics from the modern day and wrap it in a story so that it's not like it's glaring at you in the face like, oh, this is what's happening. It's like, okay, that's happening, but we're also having fun. And so it makes it easier to understand in a way, if that makes sense. And like, just like with the Orville, with the I can't remember the name of the episode, the Dolly Parton episode with the female Mocklins. Like, they're talking about the forced extermination of a gender, and they're playing 9 to 5. And it's like, this is just fun chaos.
That's Seth MacFarlane just having fun, I think. Because he's the guy in charge, right? He can do anything. Pull from anything. I'm sure it costs a lot of money to get the rights to do 9 to 5, but maybe not. I mean, who was on there the other day? They have some real big names come on this show.
They had Charlize Theron at one point.
Yeah.
Who?
Charlize Theron.
Yeah.
Oh, Charlize. Yeah, that was a great episode. Yeah, Picardo looks funny. He's so together. His doctor is so pristine, He's so together. To see him just being, well, I don't know if that's right for you, I think he should do the Bob Hope story. Oh, I was going to punch her right in the nose.
I'm so jealous.
I know. Look at that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, JG. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. Make speech there. What do you need?
I was going to ask you, do you prefer to act with makeup or without?
Ooh, good question.
Oh, I prefer makeup. I mean, I'm in my thing right now. I'm going to be doing a Mark Twain show, a little presentation on February 22nd. And
that's my birthday.
What? That's what? Oh, is it?
Yeah. I'm going to be 46.
I knew that date was important. That's why I have my mustache growing out, and the beard will gradually disappear completely, whatever's left here. But I have a wig as well, and I don't have do I have a picture of it? Let's see.
You are looking very Mark Twain, actually.
Yeah.
Did I say Mark Twain?
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah, I know I do, but I can find it, though. That's the question. I just said it the other day. I can find it on Ellen Wickstrom on her site. So that's where I've left it. It's on my computer too, but I don't know how to say something on my computer. Okay, here. Can you see that? Let me see. Yeah, but it's it won't get any. Can you guys see that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, you can't.
There he is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
there.
look like Colonel Sanders.
Yeah.
Looks
I'm,
great.
I'm hungry for some chicken.
It's really
That's what I got so much was Colonel Sanders. Yeah, I said.
Hey, there you go.
I really should get a few extra buckets of chicken. And just when somebody said that, I said, "Oh yeah, by the way, it's good to see you. Here you are. Take care of that."
Nice.
everyone look under your seats.
Nice.
Full
Yeah.
belly bucket.
Chicken for everyone under your seat. There's a chicken for you and a chicken for you. Yeah.
JG, I also wanted to congratulate you because you had a run for office, right, in New York?
And you're congratulating me for that?
Well, yeah.
Well, I didn't get on the ballot. It was running for Congress, not just in New York, the U.S. Congress. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, for your district. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I ran. I was on until like last week. I was on the Ulysses town board, or the town council, and that was great. 5 years of that, and I learned a tremendous amount. But I ran for Congress, and my sister said, back when I decided to run. In fact, I made my announcement as Mark Twain at the Statler Hotel. She said, "You're running for Congress?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, the U.S. Congress?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, you're skipping a few steps, aren't you?" I said, "Well, yeah." And as it turned out, I couldn't get on the ballot because I ran as an independent. That's when, right when Tom Perez took over the Democratic National Party. And that's when the funny business was going on with Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the whole Bernie Hillary thing. I said, this is just irritating the hell out of me. I've been a Democrat for 40 years, 45 years. I quit. I'm going to be an independent.
Right.
What I learned was it is so much more difficult to run as an independent because you have no organization behind you. You have to create everything. And I really didn't have enough time to build it. So I just spoke where I could, met a lot of people in the district. It's 11 counties, and 10 of those counties are very, very red, very, very Trump supporters. One county where Cornell is and Ithaca College, where we live, is blue, but that's it. And but I've always had. My dad was in the Air Force. My mother was a high school teacher. I've always felt much more comfortable with the middle class and the lower middle class and the underclasses, the little guys, than I have ever been comfortable with people with money. Unfortunately, people with money finance campaigns.
Right.
So I believe what I believe, and I will always fight for the little guy, and that's probably why Martok was for a Klingon officer. It was impossible to become a Klingon officer because I had no background that my family could get me into the Klingon officers candidate school. And there was a whole episode about that.
Yeah,
that's why Koloff isn't your favorite.
I really bought into that because my dad was from a fairly poor family. They during the Depression, nobody had any money, and he joined the army in 1940, and because he wanted to fly. He he loved race cars. He loved. I have pictures of him and his best friend Bill Robinson at the time going to. They had wooden tracks. They had tracks in Pennsylvania made out of wood. And I said, why would they do that? I have no idea. Look at that group of people. That group of people in that picture is phenomenal.
Mhm.
And Christian, this is the director right there. God, what's his Christian? Can't remember his last name now. Wow. Anyway, and Gary Graham, who was an ultra right-wing guy, I love him, even though we're opposite sides politically, but we really had a great time together.
That's awesome.
Look at
That's
Richard.
Mm-hmm.
Richard. Wow.
And let me just say that for everybody who doesn't know, Alec Peters, who's in the picture as well, next to Richard Hatch,
Yeah.
his intention is to release the next part of AXANAR at San Diego Comic-Con. So,
Oh, really?
hopefully-
When is that? In July?
yeah, it's in the summer. July, is it? I think.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's end of July, I believe, because Star Trek Las Vegas is beginning of August, and that's pretty close together.
So we talked to Alec today briefly, and he's shooting for that. So everybody go to I'm going to put that in the chat too. Everybody go to AXANAR Live and follow AXANAR Live on YouTube. I'm going to put that in the chat.
I'm supposed to do some more Star Trek online, and I'm gonna, if I can get them to shoot whatever I'm doing or record whatever I'm doing close to that, I'd love to go down and see that. That'd be great.
Now, you mentioned doing voice recording for Star Trek Online. How different is it acting on stage and acting in front of a camera versus acting for voice only?
Why do you think the big stars love to do it? It is just the same. There's no difference in the acting. It's just that you're not being shown, but your voice is there. The stars, you don't have to rehearse. You don't have to memorize anything. You got the script right in front of you. All you familiarize yourself with it, but then you just anything goes.
That sounds like my kind of work.
It is absolutely, but that's why.
Stand there in your PJs.
Yeah, absolutely, and they, they would much. I guarantee you, the actors. It's the easiest, best work for an experienced actor. Now, it's hard for somebody who's never been on stage and never been in the theater, never been film, television. It's not easy because it's the same kind of work. But when you bring all that history with you to your voice only, it's a dream come true. I love doing it, and I can't. There's a couple of things that I can't even tell you about that are coming out that I was lucky. I'm lucky because I don't get a chance. I'm usually, well, we'd like to get John Lithgow, or we'd like to get somebody of an enormous name. But if we can't get them, we'll get somebody that's sort of like them, like you, JG. So that is my row to hoe.
I don't know. I appreciated you being in DC's Injustice. You were Deathstroke. Thought you did a great voice acting for Deathstroke and Ares. You were Ares, God of War.
Yeah, they did a lot of they modulated my voice down for Ares. I've never even heard that, but I love doing Deathstroke, and there's a lot of gamers out there that like that show, that game. So
yeah,
and BioShock, I really love doing that. The character was Grossman, a splicer, and he was like, I got to do it. He was like on massive steroids, maybe barely holding his body together. But he was always in a rage. Everything he said was in this screaming rage. So I have to do a little bit, so I'll spare my dog again. But and it always hurts my voice a little bit because it was at the end of the session, it was an hour and a half. Your voice is sort of bleeding, and it was like, "Don't question me! I know what I'm doing. Yeah, the dog did unreach his tail again. But anyway, that's there I am as that's the very first thing. The pilot episode.
That's a cool picture.
Yeah.
Pilot
Action shot.
episode is getting ready to.
I'm sorry.
I think it's just before I got blown up. Now, my stuntman was about 20 pounds heavier than me, just a little bit. And when the way they originally had me being blown up was I was sitting in the command chair, and the whole bridge gets devastated, and I get they hit squarely on the chair, and I was supposed to go flying up through the top of the spacecraft.
No,
And,
wow.
But they have this spring-loaded device. You see people jerk off a horse or jerk backwards from an explosion. That's what they're on, a spring-loaded pole. And they had it spring-loaded for me and my weight. This guy was a little heavier, but it was just enough to slow down my explosion up through the roof, so it looked like I was ascending unto heaven. And they didn't use it after all.
Oh, man.
It's ridiculous.
I'm gonna have to go back and look now.
No, that would have been great.
It's not there. If you could find an outtake of that, then that's it.
Oh, PJ, I don't want to leave, but I actually have a show coming up and I want to have to head out for. But real quick, if I've been trying not to fanboy this entire time, JG, one of my favorite Star Trek show is Deep Space Nine, and one of my favorite races in all science fiction are the Klingons, and you are one of my favorite actors to ever play the Klingons. And I wanted to say thank you very much for the years and years of binge watching that I've done on that show and enjoyment of your characters from the various shows that I've seen you on. And take care of yourself, brother. It was a great time talking to you.
Before you leave, if JG ever needs a biographer, you should bring it up to him.
Okay? I mean, I'm available.
You know, I was just talking about it today. My daughter, I said, I've got to write something about my life because it's been interesting. And my daughter wasn't around for most of it. You know, she's 20 now. And so there was 15 years before her. So I'd love to be able to, we'll talk.
That sounds good. I did a little research before we came on. I was looking at your history and where you came from to going into acting. It seemed like you were heading into a much more political direction. You went to law school for a year and worked in D.C. For the, what was it? I'm trying to make sure I got all this right.
GSA. GSA is the company, it's the agency that nobody knows about. They do everything in government. I was in charge of, well, whatever. I had a wonderful time there, but when a guy looked at me and said, you know, we are the future of GSA. And I said, you know, I don't think so. and that's when I resigned. Went a different direction.
Well, thank you, JG. Thank everybody on the panel. Drew, Katie, good to see you again. PJ, if you could pass on my contact information in case JG ever is interested in doing something like that. Take care, everybody. Kapla.
Thank you, Steven.
Yes, Karuga.
JG, I want to ask you, what are things that you still want to do? What's your ultimate role? What are you looking forward towards, you know, as far as you can tell us, you know, as much as you can tell us?
Well, right now, I mainly want to do this Mark Twain thing. I've worked on it for a while. I did an hour's one-man show, about an hour and 15 minutes. I called it Mark Twain Unplugged. And I commented on politics today. You know, I went on basically saying I just celebrated my 185th birthday, and it's a pleasure to be standing here. It's a pleasure to be standing. You know. Yeah, and then I hosted a thing called Woodstock 1869. Anyway, I want to have that show, so I have it in my bag of tricks that I could bring out and do if somebody wants a little a little Mark Twain. But I want to write. I mean, I've got
Really?
3 scripts that I could do. You know, I've got anyway. Yeah, I love writing beyond everything else.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Drew, do you have any last questions that you might want to?
No,
Oh.
I just want to because I have to get going here myself. I'm my mom's 78 years old. JG, I care for her. She's not well, so I'm her caregiver and all. So I have to
you got to get there, man. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Especially when it's mom. Yeah.
But I do want to say, sir, this was an honor, and Deep Space Nine was also, as my colleague Steven said, it was my favorite Star Trek, and it has a special place in my heart. And to me, you are the definitive Klingon Chancellor, and it was an absolute pleasure to have your company for this time, sir, and be able to just get to know you. I mean, you're a fascinating person.
Let me suggest this. Wouldn't it be sweet if the next planet-like thing they come across is Deep Space Nine? They come across the station.
Oh, a crossover would be amazing.
Wouldn't that be fabulous?
Awesome.
Did you hear about the rumor of them selling to NBC, JG?
Oh yes.
What? Of selling Orville?
No, selling Star Trek to NBC and to Seth.
Oh no, I didn't know that at all.
Yeah,
it's a rumor. It's just a rumor.
That was a rumor.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. But I love the idea of that crossover. I mean, I've always thought about it would be great to be able to cross over Star Trek and Star Wars in some small thing, some small moment. But Orville, for it to approach DS9, the station, Tarek Noor, I think that would be a fabulous surprise and gift.
Absolutely.
They could do it as a Mirror Universe episode. Therefore,
absolutely
work. They would have the largest viewing crowd.
Oh God,
I think.
Yeah, that would.
Of course.
That would be so epic.
That
I
episode
really
where
want that to happen now.
I do too.
Where that little planet was being sucked into its sun, that the episode itself dealt with the hardest decision anybody could possibly make. 30 people will survive, 70 won't make it. We've got to go away and choose 30 people to survive. You know what episode I'm talking about?
Yeah. Of
Orville. That the importance of that kind of drama and that kind of decision. It's going on today, I'm sure, among the Kurds. They're dealing with that kind of reality, and it's just when they did that episode and had that aspect to it, I said, "Wow, that's powerful, powerful."
Well, if you're ever passing through the Cleveland area up here in Ohio, JG, trust me, you got a cup of coffee on me, sir.
We go to Cleveland at high speed quite a bit.
There you go.
Because we drive from here to Chicago, and I'm always going around that right angle turn in Cleveland.
Yeah.
If,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you.
Well, if there's anything that you want to get out on the internet, Drew and Bounding Into Comics is a good way to get stuff around on social media and on any news or anything you want to promote. And I also want to go ahead.
PJ, can you send? Well, I already have your connection. I have your phone number, and I have, so I can follow up with that.
I will send all their contact information to you. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
And I also wanted to ask you, JG, is there anything you want to plug, or is there anything you want to promote right now that's important to you? Let people know.
I'm the worst businessman in the world, and consequently, I have nothing to plug. If I thought about it for 2 minutes, I'm doing a lot of things, but can I plug them? I don't think so.
Yeah.
But thank you guys. I really appreciate it. It's fun. And now I got to go drink some gargle for that, for wishing death on Karoga too many times.
Well, thank you so much. It was great to meet you. And if you ever need a forecast, let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a true pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. My pleasure. Take care, guys.
Thank you, JG, for an awesome interview, and everybody in the chat is very thankful for this interview. Our community was very much looking forward to it.
Keeping it alive. Appreciate it, man. Thanks, man.
All right. Till next time. Kapla.
Kapla.
Good night, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Chief Cook, Adega, Bird of Prey, Val Mike, Bird of Prey, again, Jamal. Thank you, everybody. Herb, good night, guys. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Drew. Thanks, Steven.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anti-Trekker.
Take care, all.
And thank you, JG.
Bye, all.